I first noticed her about 3 months ago, at the gym I've been going to for years. I'm not one of those people who makes friends there. I keep my headphones in, do my sets, zone out, and go home. But lately, there's this girl I can't stop noticing. Or maybe it's more accurate to say she can't stop noticing me. The first time, I saw her in the mirror while I was at the squat rack. She was a few stations behind, doing hip thrusts, staring right at me with this weird, tight expression. Not blank, not curious, angry. I brushed it off, thought maybe she was just focused and my eyes happened to catch hers at the wrong time. But then it happened again. And again. Always that same sharp, almost hostile look, like she recognized me and wasn't happy about it. I told myself I was being dramatic, that she probably wasn't even looking at me. Except, she kept doing it. Every time I showed up, somehow, she'd already be there or walking right after me. Sometimes I'd move across the room to a treadmill, and when I looked up, there she was again, a few machines over, lifting, always in sight. I don't know her name, didn't even know if she was a new member or not, but it got to the point where I started timing my workouts differently just to avoid her. I even switched to mornings instead of evenings once, and guess what, she was there too. I don't scare easily, but there was something off about her. She was beautiful, in that effortless, strong way that women who live at the gym often are. Dark hair, perfect figure, sharp jawline. But her expression, it was cold. Like every time her eyes met mine, there was a story I wasn't part of, but she thought I was. One day, I was leaving after a leg session, and she was walking in. We brushed past each other near the front desk, and I could feel her look at me. That's when I noticed something weird. She muttered something under her breath. I didn't catch the words, just the tone, low, bitter. When I glanced back, she was staring right at me. I gave her a confused half-smile, but she didn't react. I remember thinking maybe I'd accidentally taken her machine one day or something dumb like that. But deep down, I felt something colder, a gut feeling that this wasn't random. A week later, it escalated. I was in the locker room after a long cardio session. The place was almost empty, just the sound of water running from the showers. I was pulling on my hoodie when I saw her reflection in the mirror behind me. She wasn't showering or changing, just standing near the lockers, looking straight at me through the mirror. My stomach dropped. I turned around, trying to play it cool, but she didn't move. Her face was blank, except for her eyes, those were filled with something I couldn't name. Not hate, exactly. Something quieter, deeper. I managed to mumble, "Do you need something?" She didn't answer. Just turned around and walked out, like nothing happened. I tried to laugh it off later when I told my coworker, but she said, "That's creepy, maybe she's just jealous or something." I wanted to believe that. But it didn't explain why I started finding little things that felt deliberate. A protein bar left on my usual bench. My water bottle knocked over when I knew I hadn't touched it. My gym bag's zipper slightly open even though I always closed it tight. None of it was enough to prove anything, but together it built a tension in my chest every time I went back. The weirdest moment came on a Thursday night. I was about to leave when she came up behind me. It wasn't a hi or sorry, it was quiet, almost like she wanted to whisper something but couldn't. I turned to face her, expecting maybe a confrontation or explanation, but she just looked me dead in the eyes and said softly, "You don't remember, do you?" My mouth went dry. What? But she was already walking away. I stood there frozen, trying to process it. Remember what? I didn't know her. I'd never seen her before this gym. I went home that night feeling unsettled, replaying her words over and over. I tried searching her face in my memory, scrolling through old photos, college friends, high school classmates, even coworkers, but nothing. It was like she'd appeared out of nowhere, fully formed and already angry. The next day, I decided I needed to stop obsessing. I skipped the gym for the weekend. By Monday, I convinced myself it was fine, that maybe she'd just been having a bad day, maybe she'd even forgotten the whole thing. But when I walked in, she was already there. Same spot, same focused glare. I turned away immediately, pretending not to notice. But as I walked toward the treadmill, something caught my eye, a small folded piece of paper sticking out of my gym bag's side pocket. My heart started pounding. I hadn't left anything there. I looked around, she was on the other side of the room now, headphones on, pretending to stretch. I hesitated, then opened the note. Just 4 words, written in shaky handwriting, I remember what happened. My fingers went cold. I looked up again, straight at her. This time, she didn't look away. She just smiled a small, knowing, terrifyingly calm. I stood there frozen, holding that little piece of paper like it might burn through my hand. My first instinct was that it had to be a prank, maybe from someone else at the gym, but the way she was watching me said otherwise. That look on her face, it wasn't playful, it wasn't random. It was deliberate, like she'd been waiting for me to read it. I shoved the note deep into my hoodie pocket and forced myself to finish my workout, pretending nothing was wrong, though my mind was spiraling the entire time. What could she possibly remember? I didn't know her. I'd never even spoken to her beyond that single weird moment last week. But her expression lingered in my mind all day, the way her lips curled ever so slightly when I found that note. By the time I got home, my nerves were wrecked. I tossed my bag in the corner and stared at it for a long time, half expecting another note to appear. I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. You don't remember, do you? And now, I remember what happened. It sounded like we shared some past event, but I was sure I'd never met her before. I'm not the type to forget people. Especially someone like her. That night, I dreamed of waves crashing, a loud sound like glass shattering, and a girl screaming my name. I woke up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, unable to remember any more of it. I hadn't even been near the ocean in years. I told myself it was just my brain stitching together nonsense from the stress, but part of me couldn't shake how real it felt. The next morning, I didn't want to go to the gym, but curiosity gnawed at me. I had to know if she'd be there again. I arrived early, before sunrise, when the place was almost empty. For the first 30 minutes, everything was normal. I was starting to relax, even convincing myself maybe she'd moved on. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her reflection in the mirror wall. Same girl, same expression, but she was closer this time, watching me from the end of the row. Our eyes met in the glass, and my stomach dropped. She didn't move toward me, didn't say a word, just stood there staring. I turned around and walked straight to the locker room, trying to shake it off. I splashed water on my face, telling myself I was overreacting. When I came back out, she was gone. Relief flooded me, but it lasted all of 2 minutes. When I reached for my phone in my bag, there was something else inside, a small Polaroid photo, the kind you can't fake easily. It was dark and grainy, but I recognized my own figure instantly. Me, walking to my car in the gym parking lot. The photo had been taken from a distance, probably the night before. My stomach turned. Someone had been following me. I didn't even need to ask who. I ran outside and scanned the lot. It was empty except for a few cars glinting under the morning light. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the picture. I wanted to go to the front desk and report it, but how could I explain this? Hey, there's a girl who keeps looking at me and left a creepy note, and now there's a photo of me in my bag. It sounded insane. So I just left. That day at work, I could barely focus. Every time I glanced at my phone, I half expected a message from an unknown number. I deleted the gym's app from my phone just to stop seeing the check-in reminders. I told myself I wouldn't go back. But then that evening, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line. No message body. Just a single attachment, another photo. This time it was clearer. It showed the outside of my apartment building. My apartment window. I felt my breath catch in my throat. The timestamp in the corner was from an hour ago. Someone had taken it recently. I ran to the window, pulled the blinds open, and scanned the street below. Nothing but parked cars and quiet sidewalks. I locked the door, double-checked every window, and sat there on my couch with my phone in my hand, debating whether to call the police. But what could I say? No threats, no proof, no name. Just this girl with an angry stare who somehow knew where I lived. I couldn't sleep that night. Every sound felt amplified, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, even the wind outside sounded like footsteps. Around 2 a.m., I finally got up to grab water, and that's when I noticed it. Something white slipped halfway under my front door. My heart almost stopped. I crept closer and saw it was another folded note. I didn't want to open it, but of course I did. The handwriting was the same shaky scrawl as before. You left me there. That was all it said. My vision blurred for a second, a wave of dizziness crashing over me. Left her where? I didn't even know who she was. I stumbled back, the note trembling in my hand, trying to piece together anything in my life that made sense of this. But there was nothing. No memory, no event, no connection. I tore the note in half and threw it in the trash, but I couldn't get her words out of my head. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. No one spoke on the other end, just soft breathing. I hung up, heart racing, and blocked the number. Then I looked out the window again, scanning the street below, and for just a second, I thought I saw someone standing across the road, long dark hair, motionless, watching. I blinked, and she was gone. That was the moment I realized this wasn't random. She wasn't some stranger who picked me out of nowhere. She knew something about me, something I'd somehow forgotten. I didn't go to work that day. I couldn't. My body was there, but my mind was somewhere else entirely, looping that phrase, "You left me there." I kept thinking about the word left. It sounded like abandonment, like something that happened during a moment of panic or guilt. But where? I hadn't left anyone anywhere. I barely even knew anyone outside my tiny circle of coworkers and my mom. Still, as I stared at the crumpled note in the trash, an awful thought kept pressing at the edges of my mind, like something trying to break through a locked door. Around noon, I decided to do something stupid. I went back to the gym. Maybe I wanted answers, maybe I wanted proof she wasn't real, I don't know. My heart was pounding so hard when I scanned my membership card that my hand shook. The receptionist gave me a weird look, like she could tell something was off, but she didn't say anything. I walked in, and the moment the door closed behind me, I felt it, her presence. I didn't see her right away, but I knew she was there. That strange energy hung in the air like static before a storm. I made myself walk to the stretching area, pretending to scroll through my phone, but my eyes were darting around every mirror, every reflection. Then I saw her. She was on the second floor, leaning against the glass railing, looking down at me. Our eyes met across the distance, and for a second, I couldn't breathe. She didn't look away this time. She just watched. I wanted to go confront her, but my legs wouldn't move. My body felt heavy, like I was trapped inside a nightmare where everything slowed down. Then, suddenly, she turned and disappeared down the stairs. I stood up, finally, my pulse in my ears, and hurried after her. When I reached the staircase, she was gone. I checked the locker room, the main area, even outside the gym, but she'd vanished completely. On my way back in, I noticed something new. On the front desk counter, right beside the sign-in screen, was a folded white paper, same kind of note as before. The receptionist wasn't looking, so I slipped it into my bag and hurried to my car. I didn't open it until I got home, sitting on my kitchen floor with my hands shaking. Inside was another Polaroid. This time it wasn't of me, it was of two girls, one of them unmistakably her. The other one, though, made my heart stop. Because the second girl was me. Younger, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but definitely me. My face, my hair, my smile. We were standing on a beach, arms around each other, sun in our eyes. I didn't remember this photo. I didn't remember her. I dropped it like it was burning me, staring at it as if it might start explaining itself. The photo was real, I could feel the texture, the faint bend in the corner. The image was slightly faded, but it was definitely us. Which meant this girl, the one who'd been watching me, knew me. But how could I have no memory of her at all? I ran to my bedroom and pulled out an old shoebox where I keep random photos and keepsakes. I flipped through them, searching for anything from that time in my life, college, early 20s, vacations, but nothing. Not one trace of her. My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. Maybe she'd photoshopped it. Maybe it was some cruel prank. But deep down, a tiny voice whispered that it wasn't. That photo felt too real. I decided I needed answers, no matter how insane it felt. I dug through my old emails and messages, looking for any mention of her, any name that might fit. Nothing. Then I remembered something. Back when I was around 21, I spent a summer at a friend's family beach house. A small coastal town 2 hours away. It was supposed to be a carefree trip, but we'd all gotten drunk one night, and something happened, something we never talked about after. I remember crying the next morning and leaving early, refusing to explain to anyone why. For years, I told myself it was just a bad memory I'd rather forget. But now, that old unease came flooding back. What if she was there too? What if something happened that night, and I'd blocked it out? I searched through my old group chats, desperate for any clue. Buried deep in my archived messages, I found one that made my blood run cold. A text from an unknown number dated that summer. You should have helped her. That was it. No name, no context. I never replied. I must have changed phones since then, but that one message survived in my cloud backup. The timestamp matched the week I'd left the beach house. My chest tightened, and the room started spinning. Had I done something? Or not done something I should have? I wanted to believe it was a coincidence, but the fear twisting inside me said otherwise. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in my apartment sounded like footsteps. Around 3 a.m., I jolted awake to a loud thud from my living room. My heart leapt to my throat. I grabbed the nearest thing, a lamp, and crept out, every instinct screaming. The window was open. I never leave it open. A gust of wind blew the curtains aside, and I saw it, on the floor beneath the window, another photo. I picked it up with trembling fingers. It was the same beach. The same 2 girls. But this time, only one of them was smiling. I sat on the floor clutching that photo until my hands went numb. My mind kept repeating one question: what happened that summer? I could almost feel the heat of the sand, the smell of salt, the laughter of people I couldn't name. But no matter how hard I tried to remember her face in that memory, it kept flickering out like a dying light. The girl beside me in the photo, Lila, that had to be her name, I finally realized. I'd heard one of the trainers at the gym call her that once. Layla. Somehow, that name unlocked something small but sharp inside me, like a splinter being pulled out. I remembered a bonfire, music playing, and Lila's voice laughing near the water. There was something about broken glass, someone yelling, then flashes of chaos that refused to line up into a clear image. My head started pounding, like my brain was fighting to keep the rest buried. I decided to find the beach house. I still had the town's name scribbled somewhere in an old notebook. If I saw the place again, maybe it would jog something loose. I drove out the next morning before the sun was up, the roads empty and gray. The closer I got, the heavier the air felt. When I finally saw the coastline, my chest tightened. It looked exactly like it did in my dreams. The same jagged rocks jutting into the sea, the same stretch of pale sand. I parked by the dunes and walked toward where I thought the old beach house had been, though it looked abandoned now, boards nailed over the windows, paint peeling from salt and wind. I hesitated before stepping onto the deck. It creaked under my weight, like it remembered me too. I peered through a crack between the boards, expecting darkness, but something shimmered inside. A flicker of light, faint and yellow. Someone had been there recently. I circled to the back door, which hung slightly open. Every instinct told me to turn around, but I pushed it open anyway. The smell hit me first, damp wood, mildew, and something faintly metallic. The inside was nearly empty except for a few overturned chairs and a small pile of ashes in what used to be the living room. I recognized the layout instantly. The kitchen to the left, the stairs to the right, the back door leading to the beach. A memory cracked open in my head like a thunderclap. I saw myself standing in that kitchen years ago, holding a bottle, arguing with someone. A girl. Layla. Her face red, eyes glassy with tears. I heard the words again, "You left me there." My knees buckled, and I grabbed the counter for support. I stumbled outside, down the short path that led to the shore. The wind was cold, biting at my skin. The tide was high, waves smashing hard against the rocks. I scanned the beach, desperate for some kind of proof that this all wasn't in my head. That's when I saw it, half buried near a cluster of stones, something white glinting in the sand. I dug it out, hands trembling. It was another photo, sealed in a plastic sleeve to protect it from water. My stomach lurched as I saw what it showed, Layla again, sitting on those same rocks, her jeans soaked, staring toward the water. But the scariest part was that I could see my own arm in the corner of the picture, holding a phone, taking it. My fingers went cold. I stumbled back, nearly dropping it, every nerve in my body screaming that none of this made sense. I don't remember taking that picture. I don't remember being there after that argument. My mind kept jumping, skipping, refusing to fill in the blanks. Then I noticed something else in the sand, a faint outline of footprints leading toward the edge of the water, only half visible before the waves erased them. I followed them instinctively until I reached the very edge of the rocks, where the tide sprayed my face. I looked down into the churning water, and for a split second, I saw her. Not a reflection, her. Layla. Standing below the surface, pale and still, her hair drifting like seaweed. My breath hitched, and I blinked, but she was gone. Just dark waves again. I fell to my knees, shaking so hard I could barely stay upright. My mind kept screaming that she couldn't be real, that she was dead, that maybe I'd imagined everything, but the cold water splashing against my skin felt too real to ignore. I staggered back toward the beach house, trying to calm down, trying to think rationally. Maybe someone was playing with me, maybe someone else found out about whatever happened that night. But when I reached the door, something made me freeze. There, nailed to the wooden panel, was a new note. The same shaky handwriting as before. Now it's your turn to remember. I tore it down, heart pounding, looking around wildly, but no one was there. Just the endless stretch of sand and the sound of the ocean roaring like it was mocking me. I got in my car and sped off, not even checking the rearview mirror. The entire drive home, that sentence kept looping in my head like a curse. When I finally reached my apartment, everything looked the same, but somehow wrong. The lights flickered once when I turned them on. My reflection in the mirror seemed a half-second behind. I threw the note on the table and grabbed my laptop, desperate for distraction. But when I opened it, I froze. There was a new email in my inbox. No sender. No subject. Just one attachment labeled watch_this.mp4. My hands shook as I clicked it. The video opened to a shaky handheld clip, clearly recorded on a phone. The beach again. Nighttime. I could see the bonfire, the same rocks, and several people laughing in the background. The camera panned to show two girls, me and Layla. We were both drunk, smiling, arm in arm. Then the image shifted suddenly, jerky, like the phone was dropped. A scream. The sound of waves. Then the camera tilted, capturing Layla stumbling toward the water, calling someone's name, my name. I watched in horror as she slipped on the rocks and fell, her head hitting something with a sickening crack. The video ended there. My heart was pounding so violently I thought I'd be sick. I didn't remember this. I didn't remember leaving her. But she was right, I had. I left her there, I couldn't breathe. The room felt smaller with every second, the sound of my heartbeat loud enough to drown everything else out. I stared at the frozen frame on my laptop screen, the beach, the rocks, the waves swallowing everything, and my mind refused to accept it. I wanted to believe it was fake, that someone had edited it to mess with me, but deep down I knew. That scream, that laugh before it turned to panic, that was mine. I slammed the laptop shut and stumbled back, gripping the edge of the counter as my vision blurred. The air felt thick, heavy, suffocating. I could still hear the echo of her voice calling my name from the water. I remembered now. The fight. The bottle. Lila had been drinking, I had too, and she wanted to go for a swim. I'd said no, told her it was too dark, too dangerous, but she'd laughed, said she wasn't afraid. We argued, the kind of pointless fight people have when they're young and stupid and full of pride. She ran toward the water, and I followed, yelling at her to come back. I remember slipping, catching myself, the sound of something cracking. I thought she'd come up. I waited, calling her name until my throat hurt, but she never did. I panicked. I left. I drove off before anyone woke up, convincing myself that maybe she'd gone home another way, that she was fine. But she wasn't. The police report must have said it was an accident. I'd blocked it out so deeply that I'd erased her. Every trace of her. Until she came back. I sank to the floor, my body shaking uncontrollably. I didn't even notice my phone vibrating on the counter until the sound cut through the silence. Unknown number. For a moment, I thought it was my imagination, but it kept buzzing. I forced myself to answer. No one spoke. Just the faint sound of waves. Then, a whisper. You remember now. The line went dead. I dropped the phone like it burned me. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside made me jump. At one point, I thought I heard footsteps in the hallway, but when I looked through the peephole, it was empty. I decided to go back to the gym the next morning, desperate to face her, or whatever version of her I'd been seeing. I needed to know what she wanted. The drive there felt unreal, like I was moving through fog. When I walked inside, the usual music and chatter seemed distant, muffled. I scanned the room, but Lila wasn't there. I almost turned to leave when I saw movement in the mirror across from the treadmills. My own reflection stared back, pale and exhausted, but behind me, for a split second, there she was. Layla. Her eyes calm now, not angry. Just sad. I spun around, but the space was empty. My reflection flickered in the mirror, once, twice, and then stabilized. I stood there frozen, watching the faint outline of her handprint appear against the glass, right next to my reflection's shoulder. Then it faded. My chest ached like someone had reached in and squeezed my heart. I knew she wasn't there to hurt me. She just wanted to be remembered. To not be erased. That night, I went back to the beach house one last time. The tide was low, the moon huge and silver above the water. I walked down to the rocks, holding the photo I'd found. I knelt in the sand and set it down, letting the waves slowly pull it away. I'm sorry, I whispered, though the wind carried it off before I could even hear it. I stayed there for hours, until the first light of morning hit the horizon. When I finally turned to leave, I saw something glinting near the rocks again, a bracelet. Simple, silver, a little tarnished. I recognized it immediately. It had been hers. I picked it up and felt something shift inside me, grief, guilt, maybe both. But for the first time, the air felt lighter. As I drove home, I caught a glimpse of the ocean in my rearview mirror. For just a second, I saw her standing on the shore, watching me go, smiling softly. Then she was gone. The next day at the gym, I noticed the corner where she used to be empty, calm, no more cold stares. The tension that had followed me for weeks had lifted. Still, sometimes when I pass by the mirrors, I swear I feel something behind me, a flicker, a reflection that lingers just a second too long. I don't turn around anymore. Maybe it's my imagination. Maybe it's her. But one thing is certain, forgetting doesn't mean it's gone. Some memories wait patiently for you to remember them, no matter how deep you bury them.